The guy in the orange hoodie was the first one I noticed. He was standing too close to the second-floor window, smoking, watching. His back was to me, but every now and then he'd lean to the side like he was trying to get a better view inside. I thought maybe he was just high or drunk, until I saw his hand twitch the way mine does when I'm nervous. And that's when I knew something was off. The house was glowing, loud music thumping beneath the floorboards. Laughter spilled out from the open patio door. High heels clicked. Glasses clinked. It was the kind of party where people take blurry videos for Instagram and pretend they aren't miserable. I wasn't supposed to be there yet. She told me 11:45. But at 10:39, I was parked across the street, engine still running, watching silhouettes move behind linen curtains and neon lights. I told myself I just needed air. Maybe walk around the block. But my feet took me toward the house like they had their own agenda. On the porch, someone had written Emma's 30th on a chalkboard sign with balloons tied to it. Emma didn't know me. I wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't dressed for it either, just a wrinkled hoodie and jeans I hadn't washed since Tuesday. But I still walked up the steps. I don't know what I was expecting. A glimpse of her at the table with coworkers? Maybe she'd look bored. Maybe she'd already be texting me, asking if I was close. But the moment I reached the side yard, everything began unraveling fast. There was a back gate, unlocked. The lights dimmed near the pool. I heard her laugh. Not the kind she uses with me, the one that ends in a snort, but the prettier one. The one she reserves for strangers. I moved closer. That's when I saw it. Her. In that maroon dress I'd never seen before. Thin straps. Open back. It wasn't the kind of dress you wear for cocktails. It was the kind you wear when you're hoping someone will pull you aside and say they've always wanted you. And someone did. He had his hand on her hip. She leaned in like it was the most natural thing in the world. Whispered something into his ear. He laughed and touched her hair. Her hair. The same curls I'd brushed out of her eyes just a few hours earlier while she tied her shoes. Then she said it. I have until 11:45. And he smiled like he'd won. That was when everything in me turned quiet. No rage. No shock. Just this slow, crawling numbness that took over every part of my chest. Because this wasn't the first time. I could tell. And the worst part? She was still smiling. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I think my brain refused to catch up to what my eyes had already seen. She was standing barefoot now, toes just at the edge of the pool, that maroon dress clinging to her like it was stitched to her skin. He was behind her, one arm draped low around her waist, fingers moving rhythmically over her hip. Too slow to be casual. Too familiar to be recent. It wasn't new. This wasn't a drunk mistake in the making. I stayed in the shadows, just past the edge of a poorly lit hedge, where the floodlight from the back deck couldn't find me. Two college-age girls walked by, laughing over some stupid TikTok sound. Neither noticed me. That's how invisible I'd become, even to strangers. I should have walked away. Any rational person would have. But something about being a coward, being the guy who waits in the car while his wife pretends he's an Uber, froze me in place. I needed to see it. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for whatever scraps of self-respect I had left. So I went around the side of the house, heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. There was a sliding glass door near the kitchen, half open, and for a second, it felt like the universe itself invited me to witness what I'd never been meant to see. I stepped up quietly and looked inside. There were maybe 20 people. The music wasn't blaring like I thought. It was just loud enough to be felt in your ribs. A group was huddled around the kitchen island, laughing about some story a guy in suspenders was telling. Nothing suspicious. Nothing romantic. Just party noise. But then I saw her again. Further in, past the living room. In a hallway that led to the guest rooms. She was tugging his hand, dragging him backward with a grin on her face. He looked amused, compliant, like he'd been through this dance before. I don't know what came over me, but I pulled my phone out and hit record. I zoomed in, hand trembling like I was holding a jackhammer. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. The way she looked at him told me everything. Not lust. Comfort. Like she belonged there. And then, as if to carve it into stone, she stopped at the doorframe of a dark room, turned back toward him, and said something I could only lip read. Leave it unlocked. He stepped in first. She followed, her hand reaching back to close the door halfway. Not all the way, just enough to leave room for denial. I stood there for what felt like hours. The sliding door was open behind me, the cold air brushing my face like a warning. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. But I did walk inside. I don't know why. Maybe I'd finally snapped. Or maybe I wanted her to see me. Not as the ride waiting outside. Not as the guy who folds her laundry while she's out working late. I wanted her to feel what it's like to be caught. To lose the thing you were too arrogant to think could be lost. People looked up when I walked in. No one knew me. I was a stranger at a party full of fake smiles and free wine. A girl offered me a drink like I was just another guest. I waved her off. I walked straight to the hallway. Every step sounded louder than it should have. One girl sitting on the couch said, "Hey, I don't think you're..." But I was already past her. I reached the door, paused, hand trembling on the knob. Then I pushed. And what I saw inside that room will stay with me for the rest of my life. The door opened slower than I expected. Or maybe time just fractured in that moment. Everything about the next 10 seconds burned into my memory like the flash of a camera that never fades. The first thing I noticed wasn't them. It was the mirror, floor length, leaned against the far wall. The kind with gold trim, meant for selfies. I saw them through it before I even registered what they were doing. Her hands were already on his collar. His mouth was on her neck. One strap of her dress had slipped down, and she made no effort to pull it back up. I stood frozen in the doorway, half in shadow, not breathing, not thinking, only watching. Like I'd been split in two and the better half of me had already died. They didn't see me. Not yet. The music outside was loud enough to mask my footsteps, but not loud enough to drown out her voice when she moaned his name. And it wasn't mine. That's what did it. That name. It had weight. History. It wasn't some new fling. This was someone who had been there before. And suddenly, puzzle pieces I didn't even know existed began sliding together. The overnight conferences. The old friend from college who'd just moved back. The way she used to lock her phone and flip it over screen down like a nervous tick. I stepped backward, carefully, and pulled the door closed until it clicked. Still, they didn't notice. I walked back down the hall like a man underwater. A guy bumped into me holding a tray of Jell-O shots, said my bad, but I didn't answer. I stepped outside and leaned hard against the side of the house. I could still feel her voice in my ears. That voice. That soft, aching one she hadn't used with me in months? A year? Maybe longer? And the worst part. Worse than the kiss. Worse than the room. Worse than her smile while she did it? It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like I was the one intruding. Like I'd walked in on something I was never supposed to witness. Like I was the side character in a story they'd been writing together for years, and this was just another chapter. I stayed outside, shaking, for I don't even know how long. I thought about texting her, saying I was there, making her squirm. But I didn't. I couldn't. My hands wouldn't stop trembling long enough to type. Instead, I walked around to the front of the house again and sat on the curb. I kept staring at my phone like it owed me answers. And then, at exactly 11:45, I got her text. "Hey babe, just wrapping up now. Can you pull around front?" Red heart. I stared at it. No guilt. No delay. No hey, I'll explain. Just a clean, perfect lie wrapped in a heart emoji. So I drove around. I pulled up slowly, hands still cold, mind still racing. And there she was, walking out like she'd just had wine and gossip with her girlfriends. Fixed her hair. Slipped her arm through her purse strap like nothing in her life had come undone. She opened the door, slid into the passenger seat, and smiled. "Thanks for being on time," she said. "I'm exhausted." I couldn't speak. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, the same lips that had just been on someone else, and asked, "Can we stop for fries?" I nodded. Because what else do cowards do? They drive. They nod. They smile when they want to scream. And I, apparently, was very good at that. But I wasn't going to let this end in silence. I was already planning what I'd do next. The fries went untouched. She scrolled through Instagram the entire ride, occasionally laughing at something and showing me her screen like nothing had happened. "Look at what Emma wore," she said at one point, and I nodded like I could even see the phone through the fog in my brain. Every time she spoke, it was like glass grinding between my ears. That voice. That casual, happy voice. How was it possible she could shift so easily from what she'd just done to this? How many times had she done it before? How many nights had I picked her up, blind and smiling, while she left someone else's hands behind? She unwrapped the fries in the passenger seat. The smell hit me like a punch in the gut. I used to love that smell. It meant late-night talks, the kind where we shared dumb stories and laughed until she snorted. Not tonight. Tonight, it meant betrayal. It meant pretending. It meant I was a chauffeur to a performance I wasn't invited to understand. I dropped her off at home, watched her go upstairs, then sat in the car until the engine coughed. When I walked in 20 minutes later, she was already brushing her teeth, humming some pop song, wearing the old, oversized shirt I bought her at a gas station in Santa Fe. When she caught me looking at her, she smiled with foam on her lips and said, "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" I swallowed bile. "Just tired." "Same." She rinsed, kissed my shoulder, and walked past me to the bed. "You're the best." Seriously. I almost laughed out loud. I'm the best. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her while she breathed soft and even, curled up like a kid who didn't have a single ghost chasing her. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking, planning, trying to decide whether I was going to lose my mind or do something smarter. By 3:20 a.m., I had made a decision. Her phone was on the nightstand, plugged in. She always slept hard. I waited another 10 minutes just to be sure. Then I reached over, slowly, gently, and picked it up. Face ID wouldn't work. But she hadn't updated her password since last summer, when she set it to her niece's birthday. I got in. It took everything in me not to shake. Her inbox was clean, too clean. Messages with Emma, Maya, and Trina were all filled with the same surface-level party chatter. But there was one conversation in WhatsApp that caught my attention. A contact named L. There were no photos. No name. Just a single letter. And then I opened the thread. Hundreds of messages. Voice notes. Videos. My stomach twisted. They talked about me. About her routine. About how I'd never ask questions, and how perfectly easy it all was. There was even a pinned message she'd sent him a week earlier. "Pick the back room again. He won't show early." I read those words 5 times before I realized my hand was gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. She'd planned it. Not just the night. All of it. And then came the video. It auto-played before I could stop it. A short clip. Just a second or two. Her in that same dress. Him behind her. Her face turned toward the mirror. Lip caught between her teeth. Eyes half closed. She whispered his name, not mine. Again. I couldn't breathe. The rage didn't come in an explosion. It came in quiet waves. Cold. Clean. Precise. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. That's what it was. I set her phone back exactly where it had been, screen dark, cord still plugged in. I got up, walked into the kitchen, and sat at the table until the sun started bleeding through the window. That morning, she made coffee like always. Asked if I wanted eggs. I said I wasn't hungry. I wasn't. I was planning something. And it started that afternoon, when she went out for a client lunch. She left her laptop open, and I finally opened the folder marked Personal. I used to believe personal meant vacation photos. Maybe old PDFs from doctor visits or tax documents. Not what I found. The folder had no password. That was the first surprise. The second was its size. Over 2 gigabytes of data, mostly videos, voice recordings, PDFs, screenshots. I clicked the first one without thinking. It was titled Tuesday_NOV_12.MOV. She was in a hotel room. Same maroon dress. Sitting on the edge of the bed, laughing while sipping something out of a stemless glass. A man, presumably L, was holding the camera. She reached toward it, joking, "You always record the boring parts." The clip ended there. Another file. Feedback.pdf. I opened it, expecting a work presentation or maybe something client-related. But no, it was from him. A full 2-page typed review. Of her. Of their encounters. Rating everything from discretion to emotional detachment. I'm not making this up. It was like someone reviewed a performance. Like she was a contractor fulfilling a role. He even wrote, "Your control over the dynamic is improving." He still suspects nothing. Maintain the current rotation of excuses. He's too mild to challenge it. That was me. I felt sick. Like I had stepped into some twisted play I'd never auditioned for, but apparently starred in. And it got worse. There was a spreadsheet. Yes, a spreadsheet. A literal Google sheet with dates, locations, times, and short-coded notes I deciphered quickly. B&B equals beach and breakfast motel. CR equals car rendezvous. WNR equals weeknight risk. Some rows had a small column marked dollar, and the amounts weren't tiny. $150, $500. One had $2,300 next to it. The notes read, comped via Curtis's card. No alert triggered. I stood up so fast the chair toppled behind me. I didn't even hear it fall. She had used my money to fund this? And then I saw the folder inside the folder, titled Exit Strategy. I hesitated. For a long time. I stared at it like it was breathing. I knew once I opened it, there would be no coming back. Whatever fantasy I had left, the version of her I still clung to like a threadbare hoodie, would be shredded. But I clicked. There was a Word doc. 5 pages. Written entirely by her. Titled, Things to Handle Before Leaving Him. And it read like a checklist. Freeze joint account by December. Transfer insurance policy by Q1. Secure apartment. Ask L to co-sign. Inform family after. Not before. If confrontation happens, cry. Stick to emotional neglect narrative. Curtis won't fight it. Curtis won't fight it. I nearly laughed. That was the line that pushed me over. I closed the laptop, heart slamming against my ribs, and sat perfectly still for what felt like hours. Birds chirped outside. Somewhere a lawnmower started. The world had the audacity to keep turning while I was silently combusting at our damn kitchen table. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't punch walls. That's not me. But I started writing. Not a message. Not a confession. A plan. And not for revenge. Not yet. I wanted something deeper. Something that didn't just expose her, but turned her carefully constructed lie into a house of cards in a wind tunnel. And for that, I needed to get her to keep lying. I needed to be the same clueless, soft-voiced, patient husband for a little longer. That evening, I made dinner. Lemon pasta. Her favorite. I even opened the wine she keeps for special nights. The one we bought in Oregon 2 summers ago and agreed to save for our 10th anniversary. She walked in the door at 6:38, phone already in her hand, typing something with that sly half-smile she gets when she thinks no one's watching. I watched. She looked surprised by the food. Wow, what's the occasion? I shrugged. Just missed you last night. And then I kissed her. That part felt like licking the edge of a knife. She sat down and started eating, oblivious. Told me all about how lunch ran long because a client ordered too many appetizers. I nodded at the right places. Smiled. I even laughed when she called her coworker a hot mess for drinking too many sangrias. What I really wanted to say was, which lie do you think I'm swallowing first? But I didn't. Because I needed her to keep lying. I needed her to believe she still had control. That night, while she showered, I set the camera. A discreet GoPro I'd used when I tried to start vlogging about motorcycles 5 years ago. Back then I made exactly 3 videos and forgot about it. But now it had a real purpose. I positioned it behind a row of books on the bedroom shelf. Just wide enough to see the bed and the door. I wasn't looking to record anything scandalous. Not yet. I just wanted to know if she talked in her sleep. If she checked her phone when she thought I was out cold. If she whispered anyone else's name in the dark like she had in that hotel video. The first night, nothing. She just scrolled for 20 minutes, then set the phone down and rolled over. But on the second night, I got something. At 2:11 a.m., she slipped out of bed. The audio wasn't great, but I could make out the whisper. He's still asleep. She went into the bathroom, stayed in there for 9 minutes. When she came back, she wasn't holding her phone. It was already back on the nightstand. But she smiled. Not at me. Not like a woman crawling into bed next to her husband. It was the smile of someone who just got away with something. The next morning, I woke before her. Took her phone again. This time, I checked the recently deleted folder. And there it was, a photo. Not explicit. Just her in that same maroon dress, standing in a mirror, biting her lip. Sent at 2:09 a.m. Caption, wish you were here tonight. She had deleted it before crawling back into bed with me. I started seeing the pattern now. This wasn't just a fling or a fantasy. She was running 2 lives in perfect parallel. One with candlelit dinners and couple selfies, and the other, in shadows, curated through clever deletion and emotional distance. But I had more than just suspicion now. I had digital proof. Financial records. Video surveillance. Her own files. Even her checklist for how to leave me. And I wasn't going to let her get away clean. But I also didn't want to fight. Not in court. not on the street. I didn't want to be that guy who ends up in a viral video screaming in a driveway while she cries in fake shock. No, I was going to do it quietly, cleanly, publicly. I wanted to watch her world collapse while everyone she manipulated saw her smile twist into panic. So the next step was key. I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. Her sister, the one who never liked me until now. It was a risk. I hadn't spoken to Hazel, Eloise's older sister, in over a year. Our last interaction was a stiff, awkward conversation at a Thanksgiving dinner where she all but implied I was too emotionally flat for her taste. She always preferred loud guys with big personalities and louder wallets. I wasn't either, but that made her perfect, because Hazel was judgmental, blunt, and exactly the kind of person who would eat up a secret like it was dessert. I didn't need her approval anymore. I needed her to talk, so I called her from a burner app, just in case. She picked up on the third ring. Hazel? It's Curtis. Dead silence. Then, why are you calling me from a Colorado number? I need to tell you something. It's about your sister. And it's not gossip. It's serious. Pause. I'm listening. I didn't start with accusations. I started with evidence. One video. One screenshot. One quote from Eloise's exit strategy file. That was all Hazel needed. Within 2 minutes, she was swearing, pacing, asking me to send her more. I knew it, she snapped. She's been acting slippery for months. Tells mom she's working all the time, but never picks up her niece from daycare like she promised. And she's always on her phone now, always smiling at nothing. Then Hazel said the words I had hoped for, but didn't expect. I'll help you. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to. I just said, can you come over this weekend? Don't tell her. Pretend it's just a surprise visit. She agreed. We set the plan for Sunday. That night, Eloise was humming while making tea. She kissed my shoulder, asked if I wanted to start rewatching Succession. I nodded. She curled up next to me on the couch like she wasn't living a double life, like nothing about our marriage had quietly corroded from the inside out. She laughed when I quoted a line from the show. She even rested her head on my lap. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel sick. I felt sharp, like a blade that had finally been pulled from its sheath. Sunday arrived. Hazel showed up just after noon. She hugged Eloise at the door and brought wine and pastries like it was a holiday. She was perfectly convincing, light, playful, slightly sarcastic. Nothing about her tone hinted that she had watched her sister wrap herself around another man 2 nights ago in a hotel hallway. I stayed quiet most of the afternoon, letting them catch up. Hazel threw me a couple glances that said everything without a word. After 2 hours, Eloise left the room to take a call. Hazel turned to me instantly. Do it now. I pulled up the folder and handed her the USB. I want her to see what she thinks she erased. Hazel smiled. Leave it to me. That evening, just before dinner, she slid the flash drive into Eloise's laptop while she was in the shower. She changed the name of the folder to Spring Budget Plan and moved it to the desktop. The moment Eloise clicked it, she'd see everything. But that wasn't the endgame. That was just the first crack. The next phase was already in motion, because I had taken copies. Digital, physical, cloud stored in 3 separate places. And one of them was already on its way, via email, to her boss, to our financial advisor, and to the woman she called her closest friend in that spreadsheet, someone named Lyra. I wasn't sending it as a hit job. I was sending it as context. In the body of the message, I wrote only one line. If you've ever believed in transparency, you deserve to know who you've been working with. I didn't expect fireworks. I expected silence. But what I got was a call from Lyra, and what she told me cracked everything wide open. The call from Lyra came late. Her voice was low, careful, the kind of voice people use when they know something they shouldn't. Curtis, she said, I don't think you understand how deep this goes. I leaned back in the chair, calm now. Past the anger, past the grief. Then explain it to me. She did. Lyra wasn't just Eloise's friend. She was also part of the same private circle Eloise had hidden behind for years, an invite-only group where certain types of emotional manipulation were dressed up as empowerment. They shared methods, scripts, exit plans, code words. And Eloise wasn't just a participant. She was leading it. She told us you were boring, weak, probably cheating on her with your job, Lyra said. But watching that footage, reading what she actually wrote, You were none of those things. I thanked her. I wasn't bitter. Just done. By then, Hazel had left. Before she walked out the door, she hugged me. Whatever you do next, she whispered, don't let her define your ending. Eloise still hadn't opened the folder. She'd been distracted all evening, pacing around the kitchen like she could feel the shift in the air but didn't know where it came from. I think part of her always knew. Maybe not what I knew, but that the house she built was fragile. And I was about to open the windows. At 9:17 p.m., I slid an envelope across the dinner table. She looked at it like it was ticking. What's this? She asked. I didn't answer. She opened it. Inside, a single printed page. My name removed from all shared bank accounts. Documents for voluntary property division. A letter explaining that I would be moving out the next morning. No court. No war. Just closure. Her hands trembled. What is this, Curtis? Still, I didn't speak. I handed her the flash drive. She didn't plug it in. She didn't have to. She just lowered her eyes. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she looked small. Like the show was over. Like the mirror had finally cracked. You knew? She whispered. Everything, I said. She opened her mouth again, but I stood up before she could speak. I'm not interested in hearing you lie one more time. You can keep the apologies. You'll need them more than I do. I packed that night. Just essentials. Left the rest. Sometimes walking away means leaving behind more than furniture. Sometimes it means leaving behind the version of yourself that tolerated less than you deserved. And when I closed the door behind me, I felt nothing. No rage. No grief. Just peace. That was 3 months ago. Now I wake up in a small one-bedroom apartment with no marble countertops or matching towels, but with sunlight, quiet, and something I hadn't felt in years: honesty. I cook for myself. I joined a local cycling group. I read before bed. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. I don't check passwords or call at random hours to make sure someone's telling the truth. Because now I don't live with lies. And the funny thing is, I don't hate her. I just finally love myself more than I love the version of her I kept clinging to. Sometimes peace doesn't come when you win. Sometimes it comes when you finally let go.